Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the 19th Annual Chattahoochee Valley Sports Hall of Fame Induction Banquet. We have a great evening planned for your enjoyment. However, before we begin, it's important that we recognize our country and our nation, so would you please rise for the presentation of our nation's colors, remain standing for the playing of the national anthem, and please remain standing as well for the retirement of the colors. Thank you. Please be seated. At this time, it's a great pleasure to introduce to you the class of 2014. Each inductee will be escorted by cheerleaders from Columbus State University. From Ashford High School, Ashford, Alabama, and Troy University, inductee B.R. Johnson. Representing inductee Jim Mackay from Columbus State University, Jim Lofton. From Alabama A&M University, inductee Cliff Rutledge. From Columbus High School and the University of Rhode Island, inductee Mark Upshaw. From Kendrick High School and the University of Memphis, inductee Jeremy Williams. If you'll kindly refer to the program on the table before you, you'll note that we'll begin shortly with the invocation, followed by dinner. And then following dinner, we'll recognize notables in attendance, past year inductees. And then the highlight of the evening, of course, will be the induction of the class of 2014. At this time, it's my pleasure to introduce to you the pastor of First Baptist Church, Dr. Jimmy Elder, for our invocation. Dr. Elder. Let's give him a round of applause. He deserves it.
Still no cheerleader. Those are the breaks, right? He says those are the breaks. That's right. I'm glad you're here. This room is filled with people who've made a difference in others' lives, and those on the dais here are people who have made a tremendous difference in the lives of others. And it's always good when we can gather together and celebrate goodness, and celebrate sacrifice, and celebrate the mentoring of other lives. And Jim White has done a good job in holding this together, putting it together, and making this happen. I hope you'll join me in thanking Jim for what he does. Jim's one of my heroes. Will you take a moment as we bow together for a prayer? Lord, as we bow before you, we celebrate goodness, to be sure. We celebrate accomplishment in lives. We celebrate the giving of advice and coaching and guidance and strength. We celebrate influence that's used well and helps shape young lives. We celebrate individuals who make a difference in this community and build a reputation and build the hopes and dreams of others who see what they have done and believe in themselves because of it. As we celebrate accomplishment, help us never to forget who is the giver of every good and perfect gift. And so we offer you thanks for these who are here, for everything that has been accomplished and that will be. And we ask that the momentum of good continue in all of our lives and through our lives and through these whom we honor tonight. Please bless the food. Thank you for providing it. And bless the fellowship. And thank you for a community like ours, a community that is absolutely wonderful and knows not only how to listen and do, but also how to give thanks. It's in your name we pray. Amen.
Ladies and gentlemen, we're going to pause for 20 to 30 minutes to enjoy dinner. During that portion of time, you'll see some of the past year inductee footage of accomplishments over some 19 years. We hope you'll enjoy that footage as well as dinner. Good evening once again, ladies and gentlemen. If you have not completed your meal, please continue to enjoy it. Again, we welcome you to this special occasion, an occasion where we will recognize the accomplishments of those who have contributed to the sports world. However, before we honor the class of 2014, we want to recognize a number of special guests this evening. First of all, I would like to express our appreciation to the Ledger Enquirer, to Kevin Price, sports editor, and writers Kathy Guerra, Joe Myers, Jim Houston, and David Mitchell for this week's profiles of our inductees. I hope you had a chance to see them in the paper during the past few days. They were wonderful stories, and Kathy is here at center table. Kathy, stand up and let everybody know what you look like. There she is. Thank you, Kathy. We're grateful as well for WRBL TV3's showing of the inductee accomplishments during the week, Jonathan Husky and others. Of course, we're grateful to WTVM's Dave Plata for his support. And I want to say a special thank you to Phil Scoggins. Phil is the master producer of the videos that you'll enjoy tonight, and I told him earlier that I have never seen a better set of videos for 5 inductees, and he just really outdid himself this time. Phil, I'm very grateful for that hard work on your part. Ably assisting all of us as well in the back area of the room is Robbie Ross. Thank you, Robbie, for your hard work and your efforts, and along with Stan Plymel and Michelle Bentfeld, who took the still photos for the evening. We're grateful to all of you. With us this evening are owners of local franchises. From the Columbus Lions indoor football team, there's owner John Hargrove, Duke Liberatore, head coach Jason Gibson, as well as Civic Center General Manager Ross Horner. Thank y'all, fellas, for being here, and we wish you the very best in the coming season. I anticipated seeing Wanda Amos, the owner of the Columbus Cottonmouths, here tonight, but I have not spotted Wanda. But we wish the Cottonmouths continued success in their endeavors as well. We're grateful for the presence of various dignitaries from the area. I anticipated seeing State Representative Calvin Smyrie. I haven't spotted him yet, but I thought he was going to. There he is over there. Welcome, Calvin. Thank you very much for being here. We're also extremely glad to have mayoral representation, first of all, from the city of Smith Station, Alabama, Mayor LaFay Dellinger. LaFay, would you stand? From the city of Phoenix City, Eddie Lowe. I think Eddie had to leave early. Did he not? No, there he is over there. Thank you, Eddie. And from the city of Columbus, Mayor Teresa Tomlinson. Mayor Tomlinson, there you are. We're equally proud to have Columbus State University Athletic Director Jay Sparks with us tonight, and I believe as well from Chattahoochee Valley Community College, Athletic Director and head baseball coach Adam Thomas is here. I just haven't spotted Adam yet. Adam, are you here? No, I guess not. Some 19, 20 years ago, a group of local sports enthusiasts, well, I have made one error already, and it's just been brought to my attention. Senator Ed Harbison is in attendance tonight. Ed, I apologize for not having recognized you. I'm sorry about that. Some 19, 20 years ago, a group of local sports enthusiasts gathered to consider how they might begin to recognize and honor those who had contributed to sports from the Chattahoochee Valley. After a series of meetings, the organization we know today as the Chattahoochee Valley Sports Hall of Fame came into existence. It consists of 17 active members, and I believe all of those 17 are in attendance tonight. Would you kindly stand if you're one of those 17 committee members of the Chattahoochee Valley Sports Hall of Fame? Thanks to all of you for jobs well done. We're pleased to have a number of past year inductees or representatives here with us tonight, and if you'll please stand as your name is called and remain standing until I have called everyone. First of all, from the class of 1997, representing his father, B.F. Register, his son, Lieutenant General retired Ben Register. General, just hold your applause until we get through here. From the class of 1998, Bubba Ball. There he is. From the class of 1999, Billy Key. From the class of 2000, Sonny Clements. From the class of 2000, Jack Key Jr. From the class of 2002, Sam Mitchell. From the class of 2003, Bill Plager. From the class of 2003, I think I saw Wayne Trawick. Wayne, are you here? No? Okay. From the class of 2004, Wallace Davis. From the class of 2004, DJ Jones. From the class of 2005, Debbie Ball. From the class of 2005, Bobby Howard. From the class of 2008, James Patrick. From the class of 2011, Champ Baker Jr. Let's give all of these past year inductees a round of applause. Now it's time to honor our class of 2014 inductees. Our first inductee was an all-state football player while at Ashford High School in Ashford, Alabama. He was a four-sport letterman while at Troy State College, All-Alabama Collegiate Conference player in football in 1964, lettered 4 years in football and 1 year in baseball. While coaching at Jordan High School in 1970, he was Bi-City Baseball Coach of the Year. He was a graduate assistant baseball coach at Auburn University. While head baseball coach at Chattahoochee Valley Community College, he achieved 630 wins, 5 Alabama Junior College Baseball Championships, qualified for Alabama Junior College Baseball Tournament 19 of 24 years, was Alabama Junior College Baseball Coach of the Year in 1977, 84, 86, 94, and 96. He was assistant baseball coach for the National Sports Festival Championship in 1985 in Baton Rouge, Louisiana. He retired in 1999. Would you please direct your attention to the screen?
B.R. Johnson is synonymous with the game of baseball in the Chattahoochee Valley. The Ashford, Alabama native was a 4-year letterman in football at Troy State College. In 1964, he made the All-Alabama Collegiate Conference football team. B.R. also lettered in baseball at Troy. His coaching career began in 1967 as an assistant football coach in Eufaula. From there, it was on to Jordan High School in Columbus as an assistant football and head baseball coach. He was named the Bi-City Baseball Coach of the Year in 1970. Later that year, he headed to Macon to become head baseball coach at Northside Warner Robins. While attending Auburn University in 1973 to get his master's degree, B.R. served as a graduate assistant baseball coach. In 1975, B.R. landed his first collegiate head baseball coaching job at Chattahoochee Valley Community College, which he would call home for the next 25 years. His Pirates captured 5 Alabama Junior College Conference championships. Each time, B.R. was named the Alabama Junior College Coach of the Year. His teams won 630 games over the course of Johnson's coaching career at CVCC. B.R. saw numerous players he coached go on to achieve tremendous success in college and pro ball, two of the most prominent being pitchers Danny Cox, who pitched in 3 World Series with the Cardinals, and Tim Hudson, who went on to star at Auburn, the Oakland A's, and most recently, the Atlanta Braves. Since his retirement, BR has been inducted into several Hall of Fames, including CVCC's and the Alabama Baseball Coaches Association. Ladies and gentlemen, tonight, the Chattahoochee Valley Sports Hall of Fame is proud to induct B.R. Johnson.
Ladies and gentlemen, class of 2014 inductee, B.R. Johnson. Congratulations. Take a look at the camera there. The podium is yours, sir. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I don't know a joke, and that's a good thing because I know we need to move along, and certainly I want to thank so many people, so many thank yous in so little time. I never thought I deserved to be placed in the Chattahoochee Valley Sports Hall of Fame, so to thank the nominator or whoever put me in the nomination, and I think I know who it is, thank you so much, and of course the committee who voted on that is just congratulations to these members, and Cliff and Mark, whom I talked to tonight, certainly Jeremy, and also Jim, you're sitting in for him, but you guys are much deserving. You got to thank your family. I mean, you start with that, and certainly mine is no different. My wife, Helen, is here, and in June 19th, I hope I got it right, 43 years. My daughter, Courtney Ellis, is here. She has 2 children, Stephen and Avery, my 2 granny babies, and just crazy about it. We just spent quite a bit of time together during the snowstorm, so we had a good time. My son, Clark, could not be here. He's just recently taken a job in North Carolina, and it's real cold up there, so they making up some time, and he couldn't come. And my son-in-law, also Mark Ellis, is here. So glad that he could attend. Also at the table with my family is Bobby Howard and his wife, Vicki, and I thank them for coming. And George Cason, one of my Troy teammates. I only played baseball 1 year, but George is also there at that table, and thanks for coming. All the friends who have just been so gracious and well-wishing. It's just so special to see them there. There's a whole table of folks over here, and I just thank them so much for coming. All the athletes that played for me, would you please stand? And we had a grand time today. Would the athletes that played for me please stand? And that's how you get in the Hall of Fame. I could coach good players, really good coach of good players, but I never did manage how to coach average players, Mark. I just didn't have it. Mike Willoughby arranged a reunion today across the street at the hotel, and we had a grand time. Excuse me. And it was quite a reunion, an impromptu reunion. And there's a 1986 movie, The Hoosiers, Gene Hackman plays the coach, you know, Normandale, and he looks at his guys. I love you guys. And that goes to those guys too. Sorry about that. My athletic career began actually with a Little League program. Paul Carpenter, you don't know Paul, but he was a haberdasher in Ashford, Alabama, who came literally to a cotton patch in Dothan where I was picking cotton, got me out, took me to Ashford to play Little League baseball because they needed a hind catcher. Now, you would call him a catcher today, but back then, I was a hind catcher. My high school coaches, inspiration to me, W.H. Brown and Charlie Finney. I owe them so much. I walked on at Troy State College, It's now Troy University, and played for a man named Dr. Bill Clipson, who gave me a scholarship after a 3-day tryout. And I stayed 4 years and got a degree out of it. Our running joke at Troy was, I came here to play football and got an education, and I came here to get an education and wound up playing football. Unfortunately, I remember Bill because he gave me a scholarship. I'd never played for a doctor before, and that was special. Very academically oriented, and I learned that aspect from him. But the man who came to Troy when I was a senior, the first day, I was telling George Cason today, the first day we had about 80 out for spring practice. Billy Atkins, a member of the 57 Auburn National Championship team, an all-pro Buffalo Bill, and a tough guy to play for. And you know what? I'm glad he was tough because he taught me a lot. He taught me how to win. You can do things you never had an idea you could do with the right motivation, Roger. You know what I mean. But anyhow, after Troy, my first job was at Eufaula, and I thank them for giving me the opportunity. Came to Jordan, opportunity by Muskogee, and then I went back to Jordan later on, and it's where I met my wife, as I indicated. North side of Warner Robins, great place. They play 2 sports over there, football, spring football, and it was a great place to coach. I got a chance to coach in the Southeastern Conference. I like to say that, even though I was just a little piddling graduate assistant. It was a grand experience. To see baseball at that level was just tremendous, and I thank Coach Nix for teaching me the technical aspects of the game. And I learned something. Coach Nix, one day we were playing Florida down there, and we're beating them. We had them 2-1. Joe Beck was on the mound. He later pitches for the Dodgers. And they had a DH whose name I tried to forget and have successfully. And he was a very dangerous hitter, and Coach Nick stood up and said, Joe, careful with this guy now. Don't give him nothing to hit. Boom. And I never suggested anything like that again in my career. Don't mention it, and maybe they won't think of it. It was unbelievable. And then I got an opportunity to coach at Chattahoochee Valley Community College. New school started up. A friend of mine called me and said, you ought to apply. Ralph Savage was the president, and I thank him till today. He's deceased now, but he gave me that opportunity to head that program. He gave me all of my needs and a lot of my wants. And that's what it takes if you're going to be a successful coach. My career, I coached Danny Cox, mentioned previously, 3 World Series. I had a good conversation with Danny about 3 months ago. He and Whitey Herzog, the former manager of the Cardinals, are very good friends, and he lives near St. Louis, and it was just great getting to talk to him. Tim Hudson, also local guy, just great guy, just as humble a guy as you ever want to meet. He and his wife do wonderful work. It's going to be strange, Joe, watching him in a San Francisco Giant uniform this coming spring because he's been with the Braves so long. But I had an occasion, we had another big leaguer that was not mentioned, and that's probably my fault. But I saw him today. He was a catcher, Randy Hunt, from Montgomery, Alabama, went to the big leagues and caught Danny Cox the first night he went up. We had a Chattahoochee Valley Community College battery in Busch Stadium in 1985, and I was a proud daddy, I can tell you. He could throw a baseball pretty good. He stood on home plate and threw it over the scoreboard at my field one day on a bet, and I said, you can't throw the ball over the fence even, and he threw it over the scoreboard. I never saw anybody do that again. We had one threw it over the fence. If you don't know anything about baseball, that's pretty good heave. Anyhow, all of these combined to make just an eventful career, and I thank you for your kind attention, and I'll leave you with this. Henry Ford, I kept this on my desk when I was coaching and teaching. I took my teaching very seriously. I taught first aid and health and education and principles of physical education and that sort of thing. But it applies to any walk of life. Henry Ford said this, and I thought it was pretty pertinent. If you think you can or you think you can't, you are right. Thank you very much.
Thank you, BR. Congratulations, and congratulations to the Johnson family as well. Our next inductee has been the caddy for Phil Mickelson for the last 21 years. During the 21 years, Mickelson has won over 50 tournaments around the world, including 5 major championships, competed in 9 straight Ryder Cups, and 10 straight President's Cups. He played on the Columbus College, now Columbus State University, golf team, 1985, 1988. Please direct your attention to the screen.
Jim Mackay was born in England and his family moved to Florida when he was 7. He had access to a golf course where he could play for free after school. Jim sharpened his skills enough to earn a scholarship to Columbus College. Jim landed a job at the Green Island Country Club Pro Shop, which is where he was introduced to Chattahoochee Valley Sports Hall of Famer Larry Mize. Mackay recalls that he was standing behind the 12th tee at Augusta National when Mize chipped in on the 11th hole to beat Greg Norman in a playoff and win the green jacket. 3 years later, Jim was caddying for Mize at the Masters, Mize being the first golf pro to take him on tour. Jim got his nickname of Bones from pro golfer Fred Couples, who tagged him with that moniker because of his tall, lanky stature, and it stuck. Jim was invited to caddy for Phil Mickelson when Phil first started on the PGA Tour in 1992, and thus began an enduring friendship. Mickelson considers having Mackay by his side as one of the most fortunate things to happen in his career and one of the keys to his success. Mickelson says, "From the first time we were together, I realized that he was a great caddy, but over the years, he's become a lot more than that. He's always on time, is great with the clubs, and takes incredible notes, so we're prepared for any golf course and any shot." Jim's been on the bag for Phil in 8 President's Cups and 8 Ryder Cups, and he's been at his side for all 5 of Mickelson's major victories. Mackay's reputation both on and off the golf course makes him a role model for the modern-day caddy. In fact, he was recently voted the #1 caddy on tour in a golf magazine player poll. Ladies and gentlemen, the Chattahoochee Valley Sports Hall of Fame is proud to induct Jim Mackay.
Ladies and gentlemen, accepting for Jim Mackay, his college roommate and friend, Jim Lofton.
Thank you, Jim. I hope my wife and daughter are taking a lot of pictures tonight. 20 years from now, the memory of this evening will long be gone, but the pictures are going to remain, and it's going to look like I actually did something. But the only reason I'm here tonight is because Jim Mackay cannot be. He is working this weekend in Phoenix, and he's not going to be able to attend. If he was here, you'd be hard-pressed to get him to stand up here and say something about himself anyway. Jim will probably tell you that he has never hit a shot on the PGA Tour. He would probably tell you that he's just lucky to be able to carry the bag for one of the most successful players of all time. And that is true. Jim has been very lucky, but I don't think you achieve the level of success that he has without having a little something extra. I've always been intrigued by the stories of successful people and the journey to success, and there are always a lot of similarities. There are always adversity and failures. I don't think anyone ever just wakes up and becomes an overnight success. And Jim is no exception to that rule. I remember the first time I met Jim, I was a 17-year-old freshman on the golf team at Columbus State, and Jim was a junior and the oldest guy in the golf house. So we looked up to him. Of course, he was 6'4", and he was taller than the rest of us, and we gave him the name Big Jim. As you know now, his name is Bones. Apparently, when you get a nickname from Fred Couples, it's a little bit cooler than when you get a nickname from the guys on the golf team. But the thing that stands out to most to me about Jim, even though he was 6'4", he was the only guy on the golf team that I outweighed. And for some reason at the time, that seemed to be important. And I remember when we would go to the Houston Clinic for our physicals every year, we would basically go through a big line like cattle, and they would test for things like strength and flexibility and make sure you could cough at appropriate levels and things like that. And we would go through and we'd test things like our vertical leap, and we would see how many pull-ups we could do. Jim made it through his entire college career with doing 0 pull-ups, and I'm pretty sure that is still the record at the Houston Clinic. So we had his first failure. We knew then that he was not going to be a power lifter and he was not going to be a bodybuilder. But he was 6'4", and he had a wingspan considerably wider than that, so we thought he had to be a basketball player. And we decided that the golf team would have an intramural basketball team. And at the time, it sounded like a good idea. All good players have some kind of go-to move, whether it's a crossover dribble or a great jump shot. Jim's go-to move was the fake free throw. And I don't know if any of you ever tried that. I would suspect that you haven't. But when you shoot the fake free throw, you're hoping that the opposing team will enter the lane prematurely, and you'll get 3 shots instead of 2. But what really happens is you get a technical foul. When you do it the second time, you get your second technical foul, and you get ejected from the game. I think Jim got ejected from absolutely every game we played that year. So we ruled out basketball. The next thing we did, we figured we might as well just give up and go play golf. And about 2 weeks ago, it dawned on me that Jim was probably going to be a really good caddy on the PGA Tour. And that sounds silly because 2 weeks ago, he's been on the tour since 1990. But I happen to remember an event that we played in the spring of 1987. It's a 4-ball tournament where 2 guys play and you take the best ball in Macon, Georgia, called the Peach Blossom. And it was the end of my freshman year. Dr. Bagley had long since removed me from the starting 5. And I was in a pretty significant slump, but Jim and I decided to play anyway. On the very first hole, I have a birdie putt that's about 5 feet. It's a downhill putt, left to right break, which for a right-handed golfer is a very difficult putt, particularly a right-handed golfer who's in a slump, who has no confidence and has the yips. And so Jim is reading the putt for me, and he tells me, you need to hit this putt on the left edge and hit it firm, and it'll go in. I said, absolutely no way. I'm going to play 6 inches of break. He said, why? I said, so I can tap the next one in instead of having a more difficult putt. And he looks at me and says, if you hit the putt the way that I told you to hit the putt, you'll make it. So I said, I'll go with that, and I did, and I made the putt. And all of a sudden, I had a little bit of confidence. Throughout the rest of that day, Jim read my putts. He was telling me what club to hit, where to lay up, where to hit a cut shot in, where to play aggressively, and where to play not so aggressively. And it was only 2 weeks ago that it dawned on me what happened in that round of golf. And when I left that round of golf, it was clear that Jim had an absolutely incredibly high golf IQ. He just knew what was going on in every situation on the golf course. But that doesn't really translate into success. There are a lot of people who are very talented that are not all that successful, so there had to be something more to it. And like a lot of successful people, Jim has several other attributes that he would never ever talk about himself. Number one, he is going to work as hard as anyone out there on tour will ever work. That's why he's not here today. Number two, he is going to be more prepared than anyone you can ever imagine. Jim not only knows how far Phil can hit every club in the bag, he knows how far he can hit it when the temperature changes, during different humidity conditions, a different time of the day, and different elevations. There is nothing that he is not prepared for on the golf course. And it sounds like a simple thing, but when you're playing at that level, it's a game of inches, and an inch can make a really, really big difference. It can make the difference between winning a major championship and not. And to me, that is the biggest difference between Jim and everyone else out there. He has all the talent in the world, but he works harder than everyone else. I am proud to be his roommate, to have been his teammate, and to be able to stand up here and talk about him today. And he actually sent me something that he wanted me to read, and I'm going to do that now. This is from Jim Mackay. First of all, I would like to thank the Chattahoochee Valley Sports Hall of Fame for inducting me this evening. I would also like to congratulate my fellow inductees. I am so sorry that I was not able to be here with you tonight. My time in Columbus was very special to me. Going to such a fine school and getting to play golf every day at Bull Creek, which is undoubtedly one of the finest public golf courses in the country, was very lucky for me. While I was in Columbus, I was fortunate enough to meet Larry Mize, a man you all know to be a gentleman of the highest order. Getting to know Larry and ultimately becoming his caddy was a defining moment in my life. I would never be able to thank him enough for that opportunity. Living as a young man in Columbus, I was fortunate enough to meet some people who had a profound effect on me. I would like to say thank you to Mr. Billy Key, Mr. Bill Plager, Mr. Joe Manderson, and Mr. Willie Bass. I have also considered myself a person who has had more than his fair share of luck. I never had a luckier break in my life than the day I met Dr. Earl Bagley. There are a lot of people in the world, or there are not a lot of people in the world that I would say I love you to, but I would say it to him and I would meet it. He changed the direction of my life and was a father figure to me at a time when I desperately needed one. I would be remiss if I didn't say thank you to the place in Columbus that I spent most of my time while I was there. I am, of course, talking about Macon Road Barbecue. I have traveled all over the world for the last 25 years, but never, and I mean never, have I had a better meal than the few hundred times I ate there while I was living in town. I always loved the fact that you could eat there for 5 nights in a row, and when you went back for the 6th night, they always looked at you with a, "What the heck do you want?" look. You gotta love it. In closing, I would like to wish all of you a great evening and say thank you to Jim Lofton and to Jim White for making it possible for me to accept this great honor. On Jim's behalf, thank you very much.
Thank you, Jim. Our next inductee was the broadcasting announcer for the 1960s game between Spencer High School and Lucy Laney High. He was play-by-play announcer for the first interracial, interregional football game between Columbus High School and Savannah High School with 15,000 plus in attendance. He was a broadcast announcer for the 4th round basketball game between Carver High School and Albany. He announced the championship football game between Carver and Shaw High School in the Georgia Dome, as well as the Fort Valley Wildcats versus the Albany State Rams in Columbus for the past 24 years. Additionally, he's been the broadcast announcer for all but 3 of the Tuskegee versus Morehouse games, played at A.J. McClung Memorial Stadium from the early 60s through 2012. He has expressed his gratefulness for associations with Carlos Williams, William Thomas, Ed Harbison, Albert Smith, Eddie Longshore, Mike Sapp, and Warren Palmer. Ladies and gentlemen, would you please direct your attention to the screen?
Cliff Rutledge began his broadcasting career in the 1950s. He hosted a Sunday morning gospel show on the old WCLS radio. He moved to WOKS in 1964 to broadcast local sporting events, and a local radio legend was born. Over the next half-century, Cliff brought the action on the field home to listeners in his own unique, inimitable style.
And can they? Here's a backpedaling quarterback going for it, and does he? Yep, I believe it. Oh, boy. It's going to be right. You better believe it.
Cliff was behind the microphone when Carver High School won the state basketball championship in 1971, when Kendrick High School won a share of the state football championship in 1991, when Shaw High School won the state football crown in 2000, and when Carver captured the state football title in 2007. You see him here broadcasting one of Carver's regular season games at Memorial Stadium during the 2013 season along with color analyst Carlos Williams. Rutledge has also been the radio voice of the annual Tuskegee Morehouse Classic football game played each year at Columbus's A.J. McClung Memorial Stadium. Likewise, he's been on the air with a play-by-play of the annual Fountain City Classic between Fort Valley State and Albany State since the Classic first started. Rutledge is a graduate of Alabama A&M. He received his master's from Tuskegee University. He's the former principal of Susie E. Allen Elementary in Phoenix City. He also served as director of the Phoenix City Head Start program as well as the Adult Education program. He retired from the Phoenix City school system after 40 years of service. In 2012, Cliff was honored as a community legend by the Sam Mark Foundation, an organization to help children started by Sam Mitchell and fellow Hall of Fame inductee Mark Upshaw.
Here we go, Carver on the attack. It's 1st and 10 from the midfield stripe. Here they go up the gut. Looks like that's Devontae Coleman, number 5.
Ladies and gentlemen, the Chattahoochee Valley Sports Hall of Fame is proud to induct Cliff Rutledge.
Ladies and gentlemen, class of 2014 inductee, Cliff Rutledge. Take a look at the camera.
hope you put enough light on it. Mark with Banquet came by the house to take some pictures, and Mark must have taken 50 pictures to get one. He had enough light on the right one, okay? You know, I wish I could say that I'm up here because I was an athlete. Maybe I was a golfer. I was a football player. I was a basketball player, whichever the case might be. Let me tell you what I said to Kathy when Kathy was doing an interview. Kathy, when I graduated from high school, I was 15 and I weighed 115 wet, okay? So playing football was not my thing. However, I did get a chance to play a little bit. Maybe my junior year, I played intramurally. I played the quarterback. I was a quarterback on the junior team at Alabama A&M. There was a guy named Johnny Lujak at Alabama at that time. He was a quarterback at Alabama. And when Johnny Lujak passed, he always leaped up in the air like this, real picturesque, and passed. When I was the quarterback on that junior team, I leaped up in the air like Johnny Lujak and got hit. And when I came down on my shoulders and my neck. Never did jump again to pass it. Anyway, you know, tonight it's a big night for me. Very elated. Robert Anderson told me, Cliff, send me some stuff on you. And I did several years ago. And I think at that time I might have said we've been broadcasting X number of ball games. It didn't happen then, but it comes to fruition tonight. My mom and my dad and my wife, those are the persons that kind of did a lot of pushing of me. My daddy was the moneymaker. My mama was the one who tried to push me and say, be something, be something, be something. And my wife never would say anything, but whenever something good came out, she would always say to her friends, he did so and so, and I'm proud of it. I love her for having done that. I wish tonight that I was being inducted for a much more profound title. I think it says that I was broadcast a football game, something like, he was a proclaimer of youthful athletic prowess with emphasis on basketball and football. Now that sounds collegiate. Or maybe he was a describer of juvenile athletic displays with emphasis on major sports at the senior high level. That sounds collegiate. That sounds like something that should go into the Hall of Fame. Okay? Anyway, so it has to be something profound. Profound is what I'm looking for, a profound thing to go in. Profundity is important, really. In the Bible, it says, behold. Shakespeare said, lo. And in South Columbus, we said, look at here. They all mean the same thing. They all mean the very same thing. But anyway, behold sounds so profound, though. Anyway, my football started at WCLS. Ken Woodfin was the station. Really, he was a salesperson, and Ken went out and sold some radio and this guy. We were let me inject this. Sun up to sundown station, okay? Sun up to sundown. So we'd tape on Friday nights and play the ball game back on Sunday evenings. And let me tell you something I learned then. First time broadcasting. Halftime, we drank a beer. And when the third quarter came, your mind can think it, but your tongue won't say it. I learned you don't drink while you got some talking to do. Okay. Anyway, Ken started football, broadcasting football at WCLS. He also started a golf tournament later on when he went to WOKS, became the WOKS golf tournament. Ken was kind of athletic minded at that time. Well, I think we started broadcasting black sports. I think it was very segregated at that time. Okay, we started broadcasting Spencer High's game. There was no cover. There was no cover at that time. Otis Spencer was the coach, and we talk about Lucer Lane, and we still have problems with Lucer Lane. They had a basketball team last year. Was it last year or year before last? And we had problem with them still playing. Well, anyway, we lost to Lucy Laney. Albert Smith and I went up to Augusta to broadcast the Lucy Laney Spencer High School game. Ken gave us some money, but Albert had the money. We got up there and we said, after the ball game, we say, look, is there something that happens in this town? And the guy says, something can happen in this hotel. See, I was naive. I was country, didn't know anything. And Smitty said, what do you mean? He said, you got $50? Well, I didn't know what that meant, so I just went on and went to bed. And the next day, I woke up fresh, and Smitty's eyes were still red. I believe Ken Smitty might have spent Ken's money that night, okay? Anyway, Lucy Laney was another contestant. Now, there were some other ball games we were playing. We were playing teams out of Macon and teams out of other places as well. Later on, Eddie Longshore and I were broadcasting a ball game, Lucy Laney and Spencer. Lucy Laney came here. We did a simulcast. We broadcast a game here to Columbus, but we also were broadcasting to Augusta. I don't know whether they liked it because of our broadcast or they liked it because Lucy Laney won the ball game. But anyway, they hired us to do a broadcast of a game when Lucy Laney played the next week. In Atlanta, they played Price High School. So they hired us to come to Atlanta and to do that ball game too. Those are some of the things that I remember about Lucy Laney. This was in the early part of Spencer High, and there were some persons, very notable persons, who came out of Spencer High at that time. Otis Sistrunk, you might have heard him. He went with the Raiders, played in car wash too. I don't think Otis Sistrunk went to college. I don't believe he did. Claude Brownlee. Claude was at our church last night. Claude was the biggest person I ever seen in my whole life. Anyway, I believe he went with the Bears. There was a guy named Clarence Spencer, went to Louisville to college and was drafted by the 49ers, but something happened, and so that didn't work out too well. Wallace Davis might have weighed 160 or 170 pounds, but I think Wallace played guard. Can you imagine that? Well, anyway, Wallace Davis did a stint with, he went to Lincoln University and did a stint with Atlanta. And Wallace now is a member of this group and a longtime coach of Carver High School. And if you ask Wallace Davis, Wallace, what is the greatest thing you've done you remember? He'll say, the night we beat Valdosta. You weren't supposed to beat Valdosta. But we went down there and we tore Valdosta up. I want you to know that. There was another ball game, too. We went to Statesboro. I forget. Smitty reminded me of this. We went to Statesboro, and I've forgotten who was playing. But we went to Statesboro to broadcast the ball game, and the people around us said, you better not cheer for that team. So we couldn't cheer for the home team. It might have been Carl, might have been Spencer. I forgot who it was. But anyway, so we'd on the mic we'd say, he throws a pass, it's intercepted. No, it's caught by so and so. He goes into the end zone for a touchdown, and I'm going to say Carver for Carver High School, and then we'll close the mic and looking for say, doggone it, he shouldn't have done that. We were trying to be nice, but anyway, they didn't like it if we cheered for our team. Basketball was always a big thing in the black community, and that's why I say to Mark, we miss you. We miss you, and we missed Mitch too, because basketball was a big thing in the black community. But what happened? Well, during the basketball period at South Rod, Leo Harrison, later James Patrick, they had Snowflake who went to Rhode Island and coached at Rhode Island. Eugene White, Alabama A&M, became superintendent of Indianapolis schools. Otis Ray was being scouted by the pros but ran into difficulties. Arthur Reeves at Fort Valley, Sammy Sim went to Villanova and became a lawyer. So those were some of the persons who were coming out at that time. But then came the advent of integration. I believe it was Coach Sparks. I believe it was Coach Sparks had a team up there at Columbus High School. And I say this about Columbus High School when I broadcast them, and I say this about Spencer High School now. There was a time when nobody whipped Spencer. There was a time when nobody whipped Columbus High School, too. Pig Davis was there in football. Pig had some darn good players, and I'll tell you about that in a second. But anyway, Joe Spark, I believe, was a basketball coach, and he had some good ones. Speedy, good, skill strap. And I remember some of these: Demetrius, Murphy Jenkins, Dan Strickland, and Toby Kirkland, and a bunch of others. And Spencer had the Tommy Chambers, Tommy Andersons, and others. And so the ball games would be played at the auditorium between children who had come from varying cultures, having not been taught anything about love thy neighbor. And so when the ball game was over, there was always going to be some encounters. And I used to call it birth pains. It was a period of birth pains. And after a while, the birth pains subsided, okay? I'll tell you how it happened in a minute. Football. Columbus High played Thompson. I think Thompson was from Savannah. Everybody, we were betting on the game that night. The sports writer for the Enquirer, what's his name? Can't think of his name right now. We mentioned him earlier today. He was a little baseball player too, threw a little curveball. Anyway, I believe Thompson lost the football game. Thompson had a player who had run 25 touchdowns, so we knew that they were going to beat Columbus High School, but they didn't. Pig Davis and Columbus High School won that ball game, and while we were ending the broadcast, the sports writer from the Columbus Enquirer back then was coming to our broadcast booth and said, "Pay me my money." Because we had bet $5, okay? Anyway, so that was the first ball game. We said in that ball game, you said 15,000, might have been a little bit more than that. It was a bunch of folks there, okay? I don't think there's never been that many people to see a high school basketball game as was. Carver came along afterwards. Carver came along and they had a 7-footer, Fessor Leonard. I don't think I've ever seen a basketball player out of this area having reached 7 feet except Fessor Leonard. There might be some that you know, but I don't, okay? Fessor Leonard. Fessor Leonard led Carver's team. They played down in ABAC. I'd never heard of ABAC, Abraham Baldwin Agricultural College, never heard about it. We went down there to play, and when Albany's team came on the floor, they came on the floor preceded by policemen. I thought that was a little bit interesting. But anyway, policemen scattered themselves around the court, but Carver just happened to have won the ball game. And from there, they went on to Alexander's Coliseum, Georgia Tech. And I said to Kathy, the first time I'd ever been out of town on a basketball game was to Alexander's Coliseum at Georgia Tech. I've forgotten who Carver was playing, but whoever it was, we beat them, though, okay? And that was that. Other schools started coming into town after that. Kendrick started in 9th grade, 10th grade, 11th grade, 12th grade. And when they got to 12th grade, Rudy Allen, Donald Bird, Jim Baker, and others, they won a state championship. Charles Flowers came to Shaw later on, and in 2000, Charles took us to the Dome, and that was the first time we might have been to the Dome, okay? But it became old hat after a while, you know. We got used to it. And then Del McGee, well, at the same time, Charles Flower won the football. He also won baseball state championship. Del McGee and Carver took us to the Dome as a state championship in 2007, and we didn't go to Macon on this one because we were not broadcasting basketball, but Gerald Turner guided the Jordan Red Jackets to a state championship. Now, let me say something, too. There was a time when nothing was bigger in the black community than basketball, but because of the growing pains, basketball went down. How did they do it? Because they took the kids who would be going to Spencer and sent them to Columbus High School. And they might have taken the kids who were in East Highland, who might have gone to Spencer and sent them to Jordan High School. And they didn't want to be there. And they didn't play for them either. And so as a result of it, we stopped broadcasting basketball because basketball and the desire for basketball had waned at that time. There were some other notables we'd like to make mention of that have come out of our broadcast area. D.J. Jones and Dale Williams, University of Georgia, and Sports Vision, that's what they're doing. Philip Wheeler, Carver grad, Miami Dolphins. Jarvis Jones, Carver High School, Pittsburgh Steelers. Thermus Butler, University of Kansas, played NFL and Canadian football. Brenton Buckner, Clemson, and went with the Steelers. Nate Odom, Carver High School, Buffalo Bills. Tim Walton from Carver went with the Arizona Cardinals. And Del McGee played, and I've forgotten who he played with, but now is with Georgia Southern. Well, those were the persons who have been with us along the way. I mentioned Albert Smith, the Baron, Ed Harbison, Ed Longshow, and Carlos Williams. Carlos came on lately. I'd say lately to me because he came on in the last 25 years. But Carlos was a student of the game. The others were this was their sideline job. But Carlos, the broadcasting of baseball kind of fitted into where he wanted to go. So he's the sports director of the radio station, and broadcasting ball game is a part of where he wants to go. And so he's a student of the game. And so he enhances the ball game quite a bit. I tell Carlos, I'm going to tell folks what I see. You tell them why I saw it. And that's his job as that. I mentioned Ken Woodfin in the beginning, but for the last 25 years or so, we've been carrying ball games, and we didn't have sponsors. A lot of times I said to Carlos, we making any money? And Carlos said, we don't have any sponsors. And then we'd have sponsors sometime. For the last 25 years, I know. I'm not sure, but one thing I'll say about Mr. Davis in the past 25 years that we have been broadcasting, I think he's dedicated to the idea of making the station a positive investment in our youth. He feels that if we accentuate the positives and eliminate the negatives, well, if we accentuate the positive, it will eliminate many of the negatives that are waiting to engulf our kids. And he calls the broadcasting of our ball games an investment in futurism. In The Prophet, Gibran booked The Prophet. When the prophet got ready to leave and the ship was coming, people from all directions came around and said, speak to us of several things. Speak to us of hope. Speak to us of love. Speak to us of different things. And the prophet said, into what fields have I sown such seeds that I should reap such a harvest? When he looked at the number of people who were coming, into what fields have I sown such seeds that I would reap such a harvest? I wonder that tonight. I see a lot of people here who are in here in support of me, my frat brothers, my church members, my friends that I just know. And so the prophet gave a bit of advice, and the only advice that I would say tonight, if you ask me, I would say, spend your time looking at possibilities rather than burdening yourself with limitations. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Cliff, and congratulations to you and the Rutledge family. Our next inductee is most grateful for his personal relationship with God, grateful for being a husband, father, and a family man, grateful to be a college graduate, a business owner, and co-founder of the Sam Mark Foundation. Ladies and gentlemen, please direct your attention to the screen.
Mark Upshaw is a Columbus native who used the game of basketball as a springboard to a successful career in business. Mark played 4 years of basketball at Columbus High from 1976 to 1979. His junior year, he averaged 22 points and 10 rebounds per game. Those numbers soared to 30 points and 11 rebounds per game on average during his senior year. Upshaw received a scholarship offer from numerous colleges, including the University of Georgia, but he decided he wanted to experience life outside his home state and signed a scholarship with the University of Rhode Island. He had a family tie there. His cousin Claude English was an assistant coach. His sophomore season, Mark led the University of Rhode Island in scoring, averaging just over 13 points and almost 8 rebounds per game. That year, Rhode Island went 21-8 and landed a berth in the National Invitation Tournament. Upshaw went on to become captain of the basketball team and made All-Atlantic 10 Conference in both his junior and senior years. Mark graduated from the University of Rhode Island with a degree in communications. He was scouted by the Atlanta Hawks, but a series of knee injuries cut short his dream of playing professional basketball. In 1994, Mark founded his own company, Global Diagnostic Services. In 2005, Mark teamed up with fellow Columbus basketball great Sam Mitchell to form the Sam Mark Foundation. They grew up together and made a pact that once they were successful, they would give back to the community where they grew up. Each year, their foundation sponsors a free basketball camp, several life enrichment tours to places like Washington, D.C. and New York, and they're also responsible for establishing learning centers in Columbus. Ladies and gentlemen, the Chattahoochee Valley Sports Hall of Fame is proud to induct Mark Upshaw.
Ladies and gentlemen, class of 2014 inductee, Mark Upshaw.
Thank you, thank you. And I'm looking at that video, I'm getting fired up. I'm ready to start playing again. My goodness, nice. First of all, let me just thank God for the many blessings He bestowed upon me and for allowing me to stand here this evening. I especially want to thank the selection committee for this outstanding honor. I will always remember this. My family is here tonight. First and foremost, my wife and 2 daughters. Can you stand, please? For 29 years, I've had Deborah Upshaw by my side, and it's been truly, truly a blessing. And to have my 2 daughters right there with her, it's definitely a blessing. And now my daughters are working in my business, so it's tough. Trust me, believe me. But I'm so proud of those 2. My family is here tonight. Can you guys all stand, please? You guys have been so supportive of me and whatever endeavor I've wished to pursue, and I just can't thank you enough for your love and support, and just thank you. Thank you so, so much. You know, I thought when I met my wife in '79, I thought I had hit the jackpot, and I did, but I hit it twice. Because when I learned and got to know her mother, my mother-in-law, Isabella Phillips, it just it was special. And thank you so much, Mama. I really appreciate you. I had 2 role models growing up. One was my father, who died several years ago. The other was my brother, Ralph Matthews. Ralph, can you stand, please? Ralph has been there with me through thick and thin, and I was telling my staff this the other day. He, you know, growing up, he thought he was a wrestler, one of those WWF wrestlers, and I was the recipient of all of those, you know, elbow smashes and knee lifts and sleeper holds. Well, he called it a sleeper hold. I called it a choke hold, you know. But I'm so thankful for you, and you were a great guy to follow. I really appreciate you. The love of the game for being started in my cousin's front yard. Marcus Floyd and Melvin Howard and Darryl Floyd. We had aspirations of being somebody. And that somebody we wanted to be like was Claude English, their brother. Every day we played, we wanted to be just like him because we had heard so many stories about him and how well he played. It was just, I mean, it was a far-fetched thing to reach for, but we reached for it every single day. And Coach, thank you for coming from Kansas. I can't thank you enough for all the love and support you've given me over the years. My first year of playing organized basketball was started in Columbus Junior High School, where under the watchful eye of Coach Willie Dysick, he taught me the basic fundamentals of the game of basketball, and I'll forever be indebted to him. As a freshman coming into Columbus High School, I was 5'10", and I was torn between playing both sports, football and basketball. And I figured sooner or later I would have to make my mind up. But something special happened that freshman year of mine. I got selected to go to Atlanta with 35 other kids. Selection was by Tillis Recreation Center. And they selected 35 kids to take a bus trip to Atlanta to watch the Atlanta Hawks play the Philadelphia 76ers. That game that day changed my life. Even though we were sitting up in the nosebleed section, I watched my idol, Julius Erving. I watched how he interacted with his players, with his teammates, with his coaches, and I was mesmerized. Not only was I mesmerized by his, attitude, I was mesmerized by just being in the Omni at that time and being away from home. That was the first time I had ever been to Atlanta, so I was really on a high. On my way back home on that bus, that's when I figured out that this was my purpose. I wanted to play the game of basketball, and I wanted to take it to another level. So I tried to become a student of the game, and I tried to read as much as I could on other players. Doing that, it made me a better athlete, it made me a better student, and ultimately, it made me a better person. My junior year was very special. I played with a young man by the name of Terry Weldon, who I had followed as a seventh grader in junior high school. All-American, could shoot it, could flat out score. My first year playing with him as a junior, I knew exactly what he was going to do. When he got the ball, he was going to shoot it. No passing from Terry. So I went straight to the basket to get rebounds. And that's why I scored most of my points. But I learned a lot from Terry. I learned how to be a better teammate by passing. And I learned that a lot of things when you give, you get. He wouldn't give the ball up, so he didn't get the recognition. One day we were in the locker room, and I know he had scored like 35 points that day. And I think I scored like 22. And the news reporters came to me and interviewed me. And I heard him over on the other side of the locker room saying, "When are you going to interview me? I scored 35 points. And the reporter said, "When you get your attitude together." And that said a lot to me about attitude. Every team we played, every game we played, it was packed. My junior year was special. We were packed. And now I come home and I go to some of these games, and half the gym is full, and it's kind of depressing, to be honest with you. I know how we played when we were back then. That year, my junior year, I made All-By-City as a junior. And we went to the regional tournament and played one of the teams in Macon, the #1 team in the state, Southwest Macon. Before we knew it, it was 19-2. We didn't know what had hit us. But Terry kept shooting, though, I guarantee you that. He kept shooting. The summer of my junior year was a very, very special year to me. I was selected to go to attend to BC camp. It was an all-star camp that only the best players in high school attended. When I got there were 400 players there. Michael Jordan, Dominique Wilkins, Isaiah Thomas, Cliff Livingston, Jeff Malone. Most of the guys you saw on TV, they were there. Some of our counselors, Larry Bird, Magic Johnson, Frank Johnson, Kyle Macy from Kentucky. I had never in my life been around that much talent. You're talking about guys in high school, 6'8", 6'9", 7 foot. I was overwhelmed. There were 400 kids, and probably about 500 to 600 scouts there every day. We played about 4 to 5 games a day. every single day. I remember Coach Patrick taking us to Millersville. It was in Millersville. And one of his players, Larry Boyd, went with us. He was my roommate. That 5 days there in Millersville, put my basketball level, as far as mindset, on a whole new level. I really thought I belonged. After 5 days, they chose 20 kids of that 400, and they made them the All-Stars. And I was one of the ones that was selected. On my way back home, I made it a point to set 2 goals. One goal was to be Player of the Year, my senior year, and the other goal was to take my team to the regional tournament. I met both of those goals. And that year, that summer, I just didn't think no one can stop me on the basketball court. And I went on the basketball court with a mindset of doing better than most. And we won a lot of games. My senior year was very special as well. I got a chance to play with my cousin, the one that I had started out with in the front yard, Marcus Floyd. And I couldn't wait for guys to double team me because I knew I had my buddy on the other side. And he could flat out shoot it. Loved playing with him. Probably my best teammate that I ever had. Sam Mitchell was one of the young boys on the team. He was basically just taking notes. He was about 6'5", and he was really the last one on the bench. But he was taking notes. I love Sam being around me because I tell him all the time, he was a little brother that I never really had. And growing up with Sam, he had a million questions every day. How'd you make that move? How you do that? How you do this? Why did we do that? Why did we ride our bikes all the way from East Highland to 100 miles? Man, why do we do this? Coach Oswald, God rest his soul, he was a special coach to me. The summer of my senior year, he gave me the key to the gym. So I would take Sam in that gym with me, and we would be the only 2 in there. And I swear it felt like we had thousands of people in there screaming for us. And we played every day. We lifted. And he would always say, man, why are we doing this? Why are we doing this? So it was special. Not only was it special, it was kind of taxful too, because I was being recruited a lot. I mean, a lot. When I got to school my senior year, there was at least 4 or 5 scouts there every day. When I went to lunch, I had to eat fast so I can go to the library. There were 4 or 5 more scouts there. When school was out and went to practice, there were scouts there. I go home, there are scouts there. I go to church on Sunday, scouts there. So at first it was cool, but after a couple of weeks, it was like, whoa. So I narrowed it down to 3 schools: University of Georgia, Georgia Tech, and Auburn. Now, Auburn was different. I really liked Auburn, mainly because Coach Herb Green. I don't know if Coach Green is here. Is Coach Green here tonight? No? Coach Green, I mean, he almost lived in my house. He was relentless. He was awesome. I mean, awesome. I almost went to school there. But those 3 schools were the 3 schools I really thought would make a difference in my life. So when it came decision time, I chose University of Georgia. I took pictures with my brother and my sister on my side. The next day, there was a big write-up, big picture of me signing with University of Georgia. But something wasn't right with that picture. My mom and dad were sick. They couldn't attend, so my brother and my sister was there with me. But something just wasn't right. I didn't know what it was, but it just wasn't right. So what I did was kind of laid low, And after about a week, I get a phone call. Claude English. Claude says, "Hey, Mark, how's it going?" I said, "I'm doing great." He says, "I heard you just signed with the University of Georgia." "Yeah." He said, "Well, I want you to just come up here and visit me." I said, "Visit you?" I said, "I can't come up there. I just signed with Georgia." He said, "No, all that means is you've signed a letter of intent. What it means is none of the other schools in the SEC can recruit you. So it'll be okay for you to come up." He was just reeling in. I said, "Okay, so free trip, no problem." So I go up to the University of Rhode Island. Campus beautiful. Teammates awesome. Claude, man, my idol. The guy I want to be like. So I stayed there for 3 days, had a great time, got ready to leave. Coach English called me to his office, and he says, "Mark, tell me what you want to do with your life." I said, "Well, Coach, I want to be a basketball player. I want to be a pro ball player." He said, "Well, what if you don't make pro?" "Well, I want to be a coach." "What if that don't happen?" "Hopefully I can own my business one day." He said, "Well, let me share something with you." He said, "First of all, I promise your mother, if you come to school here, I'll make sure you get a degree." He said, "That's first and foremost. I'm going to make sure you get your education." He said, "Second of all," he said, "you want to be a pro?" He said, "Let me tell you why I came up here." And back then, that was 79, I think ESPN had just started. So the people being scouted wasn't as prevalent as it is now, with all the reporters and stuff everywhere. He said, being on the East Coast, you got 4 teams that's going to watch you every night. So you got the Sixers, the Knicks, the Nets, and the Celtics. They're going to watch you. So if you're coming up in this area, you got to bring your game. I said, "Man, that's what I want." And he said, the other thing I want to make sure you understand is that the student athletes that graduate from here, it's an 89% ratio of student athletes graduating from the University of Rhode Island. That blew me away. And when I got back on that plane, that's all I could think of. That 89%. Making sure that I graduated. Somebody being there with me to make sure that I got my degree. So when I got home, my mom and dad sat me down and said, what do you think?" I said, "Mama, I think I may change my mind." So what do you mean? I said, "Well, Claude is there coaching. I know he's going to keep an eye on me. He told me about the percentage. And he told me about all the teams that are going to be watching me. I think I want to change my mind." My dad said, "If that's what you want to do, then we're with you 100%. When I changed my mind, the next day, 2 days later, they had it in the paper. Bold letters, Upshaw changed his mind. Going to Rhode Island. All my friends say, "Where's Rhode Island?" When I say, "That's New York, man. You don't know your geography?" So I had no idea the magnitude of what I had done to the next day. I'll never forget, I went to class that day, and the teacher gave us a pop quiz. And I had a pen on me, but I didn't have my notepad. I had left it in my locker room. So when she gave us that pop quiz, I went up to her desk, and I asked her, I said, "Ma'am, I have my pen, but I need a piece of paper to do the test." She said, "Why don't you call them people from Rhode Island and tell them to send you some paper?" I said, "Oh my, what have I done?" It's the first time I ever got a 0, because I went back to my seat and I just sat there and I thought, what have I done? What have I done? It turned out to be the best move I ever made in my life. The best decision I ever made. I was at a crossroad, And I could not ask my mom and dad because they had never went to college. And at that time, no one in my family had gone to college. The word college was never mentioned in my house. So I never thought about college. I never thought about going to college. I thought about maybe I could be another Bill Willoughby and just leave from high school and go straight to the pros. That's what I thought. So when I got to the University of Rhode Island, 3 weeks straight, I cried every night. What have I done? What have I done? I didn't realize what I had done. After about a month, I called my mom and I said, Mom, I said, look, I think I made the wrong decision. I said, all my friends, I don't have, all my friends are gone. Can't get home to my girlfriend, Deborah. I said, most of the guys up here, they leave when it's weekend, they go home because they're right in the same area. I can't go home. My mom said, son, go in there and take you a shower and don't you call me no more. Period. Deborah's going to be here when you get back. So I didn't call her again. I was committed to making this thing work. 20 years ago, I started a company called Global Diagnostic Services on a hope, prayer, and a dream. And please understand something. I never took a medical class in my life in college or in high school. So it was truly a hope, prayer, and a dream. Today we have locations in 11 states, about 60 people that work for us. Now my daughters are coming into the business. And for me, it's been truly a blessing. That's why I come back home and try to give back to some of the kids in the community. Because I know there's some of them that are out there just like I was. We had no idea of what our future holds. 9 years ago, my best friend and I, Sam Mitchell, decided to start a basketball camp. Not a foundation, just a basketball camp. And we wanted it to be free for kids. The reason why we wanted that was because we never did understand or never could understand why professional athletes would leave home, leave Columbus, go and make these hundreds and thousands of dollars, and then come back and charge us, the kids that didn't have it, charge us to come to their camps. We never could understand that. So we said to ourselves, if we ever made anything out of ourselves, we'll come back home, we'll give a camp, and it will be absolutely free. Well, that 1 4-day camp has turned into a year-long project. Today we have learning centers. We take kids on tours. I know last year we took about 25 kids to Disney World for 4 days. The year before that, we took about 25 kids to the Bahamas on a cruise for 5 days. The year before that, we took them to Washington, D.C. We took them inside the White House. And you'll be amazed at the looks and the glows and the stares that we saw on those trips. Our first trip was to NASA Space Center. It was a special trip. It was mainly because, we did that mainly because one of the kids we overheard got a dare from his buddies. One of his buddies asked him, what do you want to be when you grow up? He said, a pilot. All the other kids laughed. And he said, when I become a pilot, then I want to go on and become an astronaut. Oh, man, they laughed. They laughed. And it reminded me of when I started my business. I put 3 little words under my name, or 3 little letters under my name, CEO. And I never forget going out to a club that night, giving my card out to a couple of my friends, and they saw those 3 little letters, and they laughed. They laughed. So we decided that we take this young boy and 25 other kids to NASA Space Center. And we wanted to see who would get the last laugh. We had an awesome time. An awesome time. Sam and I was trying to, find role models growing up. It was hard. So we started to dream. We started to work. And we started to tell ourselves that one of us is going to make it. We don't know which one, but one of us is going to make it. And being out of from a tough neighborhood of East Highland, we knew it wasn't going to come easy. So we busted our butts. I never forget the day that Sam Mitchell signed his contract with the Minnesota Timberwolves. He called me. He said, Mark, I can't thank you enough for all the support and all the love and all the things you taught me. He said, I just signed a contract with Minnesota Timberwolves. So we laughed, we cried, we talked about all the hard work it took to get to that level. And I was so excited for him. So it pushed me to step out on faith to start my business, even without any background in the medical field. So for 13 years, as he played in the pros, 13 years I was driving up and down 285 and 20, building my business. After he retired, after 13 years, I asked him one question. Now what? What are you going to do? He said, well, Mark, give me 2 years. 2 years, I'll be a head coach somewhere. That's okay. 2 years rolled around. Charlotte Bobcats had hired him. He and I were sitting there in his office at 12:01 a.m. He was being interviewed by the Toronto Raptors to be their next head coach. For 2 hours, I sat there and I listened to that conversation. And when it was over, on the way home, he asked me one question. Do you think they are interested? I said, Sam, anytime somebody's interviewing you at 12:01 in the morning, believe me, they're interested. I just hope and pray that you have your assistant coaches ready and your game plan ready. 2 days later, he called me. They hired me. And he said, thank you for everything you've done. I can't thank you enough. He said, oh, by the way, training camp starts October the 2nd. He said, we'll be here for 10 days. We'll be in Niagara Falls, Canada. I need you here with me. We're going to be practicing twice a day. I want you at every practice. I want you in every coach's meeting. And I'm like, wow. So here we are, you same two little boys that were dreaming in East Highland. We're there. We're on the front of the bus, front 2 seats. Behind us was the general manager, Mr. Babcock. Behind him was his assistant coaches. Behind his assistant coaches was Vince Carter, Chris Bosh, Jalen Rose, and a bunch of other guys. Here we are, 2 dreamers from Columbus, Georgia. 2 front seats on our way to practice. So I look at Sam, the bus takes off. I say a little prayer. I look at him, he looks at me, and I say, hey man, I'm proud of you. He said, nah, I'm proud of you. So on that way there, I couldn't give him a high five. We kind of gave him a low five, and we kept on rolling. So we decided at that moment that we want the kids in Columbus to know about our journey. That's when we made that pact. So, and that's why we come back home and do what we do. When we first started the San Mark Foundation, there were 2 guys that hit the pavement, myself and DJ Jones. And I'll be forever committed and indebted to you, DJ, for helping us start this program. After that, Ms. Trina Trice and my wife, when they jumped on board, it was a done deal. Done deal. My father always told me, find something you love and you'll never work a day in your life. We've been doing this 10 years. This is our 10th year. I have not worked a day in 10 years on this foundation. So for me, it's a culmination of all the dreams that I put together. I don't want any, I'm not looking for any accolades. It's not what it's all about. For me now, it's about my family and about giving. I learned a long time ago what giving leads to. Giving conquers greed. So that's why I have no problem with giving. And we're going to try to continue to give as much as we can through our foundation, through our business, and through our personal well-being. So for all of you who have supported me, I can't thank you enough for your love, your support, and for all the things that you've done along this journey. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mark, and congratulations to both you and the Upshaw family. Our next inductee was a two-time All-Bi-City player in 1988 and 89, was the Hitachi Academic All-American 1992. He was the all-time leading tackler as defensive back at the University of Memphis and was FCA Coach of the Year in 2010. Would you kindly direct your attention to the screen?
Jeremy Williams not only knows how to coach the game of football well, he made his mark on the gridiron as a player. He starred for the Kendrick Cherokees as quarterback and defensive back, making All-Bi-City twice in the late 1980s. Jeremy received a scholarship to the University of Memphis in 1990, where he was a 4-year starter. A description of Williams on the school's website says, quote, he demonstrates determination, courage, and leadership every day in the same way he did while starting every game of his career and amassing the current record of most tackles by a defensive back. After serving as offensive and defensive coordinator at Manchester and Harris County High Schools respectively, Jeremy landed the head coaching job at his beloved Greenville High School. During his 10 years at the helm, his Patriots made the state playoffs 3 times. His dream season came in 2009 when Greenville went undefeated during the regular season. Their only loss came in the playoffs to the eventual state champions. Jeremy was recognized as National High School Coach of the Year by the National High School Coaches Association. The tenacity Williams instilled in his players was reflected in his personal fight with his health. In 2008, Jeremy was diagnosed with ALS, Lou Gehrig's disease. But it failed to stifle his desire to be on the sidelines with his players. If anything, it motivated him even more to fulfill his dream job of coaching, even if it meant doing it from a golf cart or eventually a wheelchair. He resigned as head coach and athletic director at Greenville High School in 2011. His faith and determination he demonstrated in front of his players has been honored by his alma mater. The University of Memphis established the Jeremy Williams Award, which is presented each year to the most valuable player in spring practice. Ladies and gentlemen, the Chattahoochee Valley Sports Hall of Fame is proud to induct Jeremy Williams.
Ladies and gentlemen, class of 2014 inductee, Jeremy Williams.
Sound check. Sound check. Wow, not bad for the run of the neighborhood off of Hunter Road near Kendrick. I first must thank my Lord and Savior Jesus Christ. Without him, none of this could be possible. How else could a 170-pound scrawny white boy play 4 years of Division I college football and never miss a game because of an injury? Either I was lucky or blessed. I know I was, and still am, blessed. It is an extreme honor to be next to true legends of the Chattahoochee Valley area. I remember being an 8th grader that was invited to come play that summer for the Summer League baseball team at Kendrick. Back then, all of that year's area seniors played on the same team. We were playing the area seniors at the Columbus High School field. I was starting at third base. Of course, I thought I was big stuff starting at third base with Coach Bobby Howard standing beside me, coaching the seniors. Little did I know that no one else wanted to play third base that game. Why, you ask? Well, batting cleanup for the seniors was a kid later to be called the Big Hurt. Yes, Frank Thomas. I was playing in the grass. Yes, shallow left field grass. I looked to my right and Coach Howard was even back there next to me. First pitch, the Big Hurt hit a shot down the line. I took one step and dove toward the line, making an unbelievable catch off of one hop. I could feel Coach Howard's amazement. I jumped up, of course, in stud mode, and proceeded to throw Mr. Thomas out at first. The only thing was my first baseman was on the field, not up the hill, over the fence, across the street, and in the front yard of a house. Yes, I slightly threw it a little high. I glanced at Coach Howard, standing there with his typical arms crossed, stern-faced look. And then with a hint of a smile, he said, "Nice catch." And I thought to myself, yes, it was. As a youngster growing up, with 4 uncles and an older brother, always whooping on you, saying they were only trying to make me tough. Well, Dennis, William, Kenny, David, and Robert, my brother, you succeeded into making me tough. I learned very quickly to look at the positives, because I had plenty of negatives, being the smallest all the time. I had a great trailblazer to follow in my brother. I always tried to be better than him in whatever we were doing. He never cut me any slack, not even after I got Lou Gehrig's disease. We were turkey hunting in Tennessee. I could barely walk and he made me climb a mountain after a screaming gobbler that was on the top. What a brother. I know he's a keeper and a blessing. We were blessed with great parents who were a coach's dream. For me, Robert, and my sister Kim, we were all held to a high standard on and off the field. There was none of this, "Oh, honey," or "Baby, you played so great, you are the best." They would say, "Good job, but you could have done this." They always backed the coach, 'cause a lot of the time they were our coach. There was no quitting. As a matter of fact, I came home crying when I was 8 after my first day of football and pads. They said, "You start it, you finish it. So stop crying." Thank you, Mom and Dad, for not letting me quit, and all of your love and support over the years through the good times and the hard times. I love you, Mom, and I love you, Dad. I was blessed with tremendous coaching over my years as a football player. In Pop Warner, at Edgewood, I had my dad, Walter McConnell, Mike Sanders, Eddie Payne, Dan Pate, and Tommy Drew Jr. and Sr. They taught me how to be a champion, in a win or defeat, even though we did not lose many over those years at Edgewood. In high school at Kendrick, I had even more legends that coached me. To name a few, Ike Isom, David Taylor, Charlie Dowdell, and Howard Buzz Busby. It was here that I learned to be a student of the game and not just a player. I became bigger, faster and stronger, all at 5'9", 170 pounds. I know what you are thinking. Man, he was big. Even though I had awesome, eye-opening size, speed, and grades. Well, I did have good grades. Remember, I always look at the positives. I only received one football scholarship offer. It was on the last weekend before signing day. Jolie Dunn, he had recognized my superb athletic ability. Well, not really. He just knew I could raise the GPA of the team. I really believe some of his gray hairs now were attributed to me. He always had very kind words for me on the practice field or film room, and especially during the games. The film room became my biggest weapon over those 4 years at Memphis. I already knew I was going into coaching after college. Remember, I was smart, and that could only cover up athletic capability for so long. Thank you, Jolie Dunn, for giving me a chance. I was very blessed to receive a job at Manchester High School to begin my coaching career under Greg Oglesby. Coach O, as he is known. It was going to be his first year as a head coach. During my interview, he told me that he could only hire me if he could hire this experienced coach named Zeke Gear. Man, this Gear fellow must be wise and a mature coach. Anyway, I was wrong about him being mature. Thank you, O, for hiring Zeke and then me. Under Coach O and Zeke at Manchester, then under Jim Morrell at Harris County, I learned a deeper knowledge of the game and how to deal with teenagers. Thank you. Ever since playing for Coach Busby in high school, I knew I wanted to be a head coach. So naturally, I called him when I thought I was ready. To be a successful head coach, one has to have some great players and some great coaches. I was blessed to have some of both. My first 2 years at Greenville as head coach, I was able to hire excellent coaches like Chip Meadors, Tanner Glisson, and Del McGee. I taught Del everything he knows. Over my years at Greenville, I was blessed to have many other great coaches like Del Ray Stevens, Brad Gordon, and Trip Busby. Thank you all for sharing the sidelines with me. You all made me a better coach. I may have retired from coaching on the sidelines, although now I have a bigger platform from which I coach. God has been able to use me to touch more lives in 2 years of speaking at events, concerts, the documentary season of a lifetime, and his book Tenacious, than I ever would have in a lifetime of coaching on the sidelines. Thank you, Don Butler, for being obedient to God. Throughout my life, I have been surrounded by great people like my parents, huge family, teammates, coaches, players, friends, teachers, and my in-laws. I owe it to them for creating my wife and her brother, my great brother-in-law. Thank you, John and Kathy, for always being there for whatever we need, and especially for loving me as a son. I love you, my best friend and the love of my life, Jennifer Williams. Her good looks got me back going to church and eventually helping me save my life by me giving my life to Jesus in 1989. I have never been the same again. Coach Busby was the first to describe me as tenacious back in high school. He did not really know my Jennifer then. If so, he would have been talking about her instead. She is the mother of our precious kids, Josie and Jacob. She waited on me in college. She is my greatest fan everywhere and my greatest critic, always only behind closed doors. She is a coach's wife. She went through chemo treatments while working full-time and helping with me and being a mother, and with a smile on her face. Now, that is tenacious. I love you, Jennifer. As you can see, I am blessed. Many of you may be thinking, wait a minute, your dad died in '97. Your son has spinal bifida. You have Lou Gehrig's disease and your wife is undergoing cancer treatment. You have a brother that makes you climb or crawl up mountains just to shoot a turkey. By the way, I still turkey hunt. Are you sure that you are blessed? Remember this tomorrow. My God does not make mistakes. Thank you for helping honor these great men up here. Have a wonderful night.
Ladies and gentlemen, it's been an outstanding evening. I'd just like to leave you with a thought or two. Every year, I say this to you, and I think it takes on more meaning this year than maybe ever before. We consider that there's one graphic measure by which we distinguish the men and the women of the Chattahoochee Valley, and that's through the Chattahoochee Valley Sports Hall of Fame. It's physically located, as you know, down in the Civic Center, but we tend to think it's, more importantly, it's located in our hearts. Within it are 87 individuals. Tonight, we added 5 more. We accept them because they were visionaries of perfection. They acted nobly. They acted with purpose of mind and purpose of body. Whether you take them individually or collectively, you have to confirm that they've made an outstanding impact on our quality of life in the Chattahoochee Valley. So before we adjourn, I would ask you to please stand one more time and give a warm round of applause for the class of 2014. Good night, everyone.